Grab myself a pen right quick so I can make some notes.
Okay. All right. Wait a couple minutes for some more people to come on and we can get started.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Welcome to People Power Hour this week. I'm your host, Terrell McKinney, candidate for Nebraska State Legislature in District 11. Got a special guest tonight, Larry Duncan, Senior Behavioral Health Services, Senior Director of Behavioral Health Services at Charles Drew Health Center. How you doing, Larry?
I'm pretty good. It's been a pretty good day. Quick day, man. Seems like the whole month is going fast. Like the whole year is going fast. And most of the people I talk to be like, yeah, it's good that this year is going by fast because this has been some kind of year. So yeah, it's like, bam, you blink your eyes and we smack dab in the middle of August, but I don't have no complaints. I'm good. I'm grateful. And yes, I'm grateful to be alive and well and with no complaints right now.
That's good. It's good to have you on. I wanted to bring you on
Yeah.
because I think it's important that we really start to talk about mental health and wellness in our community. I think sometimes it's a missing conversation. We really don't get into and dive deep into. And just knowing you and just knowing you for so long, you was a perfect person that I wanted to have come on and speak about mental health and wellness.
Well, cool, man. I'm glad to do it. I think you're right. One of the things that's interesting to me is, and a lot of the forums that I go in where people are talking about community issues and what's going on in the community and what some of the solutions are and what some of the problems are and all of that. I haven't been in many forums in our community where mental health does not come up as a major issue. So, so I think there's just a lot of interest in it. And I think people are very sincere in the sense that they're interested and they know that it's a need. However, not many people have the experience with knowing about it to be able to really deal with it. So that kind of puts it on us as mental health professionals to make ourselves available, to speak to the issues and offer solutions. And so, typically when I'm asked, I show up. I got some earbuds in right now, so I'm having to fiddle around with them a little bit. They kind of new on me. Feel like they're about to fall out all the time. So yeah, I'm glad to speak to the issues. So you fire away, and I'll answer where I can. If not, I'll just go off on a tangent. I'm good for 2 or 3 tangents in 1 hour.
Before we get deep, I want can you give a brief background of yourself and what you do and where you come from?
Okay, yeah. I would say, always say when I do these talks to the people out there, I say that my biggest credential for what I do is being born and raised in the hood. I know there's a number of people who are from various different aspects of what we call the urban hood. I mean, being from the South and being from, California and out west and all that, it's very similar. Some of those things are similar, but being from the urban America, hood is a distinction, especially when you survive. So I'm from the South Side of Chicago. Spent a lot of period, a large amount of time in the South Side projects, and then I moved out to the sprawling South Side where we had homes and lawns and all of that. And so the challenges that come from that really has gone into making me quite a bit of the person that I am in terms of my sense of character, my sense of purpose, and my sense of strength. So that's where I came from. Spent a lot of period of time, a large period of time in the military. And I went in the military, and I went in, and ultimately I got involved in drug and alcohol counseling. And that was deepened by the fact that I had some siblings, some brothers in particular, who were suffering from drug and alcohol problems. And that motivated me even more to get involved in the field. So I stayed in the field, stayed in the military, and ultimately I went from drug and alcohol to mental health, the mental health field, which is a combination of the two. And so master's degree, so that I would be able to deal with mental health issues from that perspective. And I've worked in all different types of environments, worked in the government, worked in drug court, worked in private practice, owned my own business and did private practice for several years, like 15 years. Worked in residential treatment centers, worked in outpatient treatment centers. Again, did teaching at Grace University, Metropolitan University, do workshops and all those kinds of things. Spent a large period of time ministering from a church perspective and a biblical perspective and a spiritual perspective. And it's kind of unique when you combine those things together, but I never want to leave the spiritual part out. And all of that has culminated in me being where I'm at now as a director of the behavioral health department at Charles Group. So what we're doing is bringing mental health to a larger degree to the three primary area codes in the northeast side of Omaha. So we're in schools, and we want to get in more schools. We're in the DCYC right now. We want to have a larger role in the youth center. We actually do evaluations in Douglas County Jail. We have satellite places, one at 30 Metro, which is right across the street from Metro Community College. We're in the towers, and we are also in the homeless, deal with the homeless population. And our center is on 29th and Grant. We've grown from one or two people in a behavioral health department to where we have a team now of 17 people, and we're still growing. We're adding folks as we speak. Before the year's end, we'll be over 20 people deep in regards to therapists who are providing individual sessions and group sessions and culturally relevant counseling to the people who need it most and people who have been denied the most quality services. So we're providing quality, top shelf type of services to those people. I have two daughters, Larita, if you're out there, shout out to you. Marla is another mother daughter, shout out to her. Three grandchildren, Tariq and Laylan and Laylia. And matter of fact, they are doing a road trip right now and on their way back to the Big O. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell, as far as my background and all that.
What have you learned so far in your role at Charles Drew about our community and their relationship with mental health and wellness?
Well, I would say what I've learned so far about our community is that people have people have a lot of different ideas about what mental health is and how that relates to them. So, for instance, I always say when I'm giving these talks it doesn't take, it really doesn't take a lot for us to understand classic mental health issues. What I mean by that is if somebody is hearing things and seeing things and they have lost control of their mind, they're out on the street and they're acting bizarre and all that, then most of us, everybody really understands what that is. They know that that's a mental health issue. They know that person needs some help. And whether the person gets help or not is typically a lot related to that person. Because some people resist it. They don't want to take the medication. They don't really think that there's something wrong with them. And whatever it is that's going on with them, they've gotten used to it. And it's bizarre to us, but it ain't bizarre to them. And so we all know what that is. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows it would be good if they were someplace where they can get care. Everybody knows that they're going to need some kind of medication or something for them to discontinue their behavior. And then some of us even know that for some of these people with some of these conditions, that to some extent, medication may not even help them to some extent, right? So we ain't got no problem understanding that as mental health issues. The other stuff is the stuff that we struggle with understanding and mental health. And so it's the same for us as Black people here in North Omaha as it is everywhere. One, we understand that we live with pain and have been dealing with pain, stress, strain, pain, racism, heavy load, burden, barren, all that kind of stuff. We know as Black people, that's what we got to deal with. We don't look at that as a mental health issue. But for some people, that load is too much. That's here. Either that was you or that me. We got some spinning to kind of spin for a minute. But so for people, that kind of anxiety, the anxiety of poverty, anxiety, strain, living in tough environment, having things go wrong, not enough, and not all that. For some people, all of that, the historical nail that is too much to bear. And we're in a population of people, we as a people, think that we're supposed to bear it. We're supposed to deal with it. And if the only thing that will possibly be okay is and getting this.
One second. Let's see if we can get Larry back on. Sorry. I can't hear you. Nope, I can't hear you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Sort of. I don't know what's going on.
I took the earpiece and
It's a drag.
it's a
Second.
yeah, it was working. will you tell everyone see and say?
Try to go back out and come back in.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, y'all. We're trying to. If you haven't, make sure you visit our website and sign up to volunteer. Also, donate to our campaign. Let's see if we can get Larry back. Larry,
Testing 1, 2, 3.
got you now.
Oh man! Wow. So as I was saying, did you want to finish your thought?
No, you can go. You good.
So as I was saying, folks, that people have a variety of different ideas about mental health, but the complexity of the issues that we face as Black people, in terms of our pain, our stress, our strain, and how we carry that and the impact that it has on our health and wellness is kind of different. We carry some extra stuff. We carry some stuff that the average person ain't really trying to deal with. So what I find out in our community locally is some people understand that, they push right past that, and they come get assistance when they need it for whatever issues they have. And then some people, their seeking assistance is going to be based on the credibility of who they're going to see. So like in our community, there you can have therapists everywhere. And if there's not something about that person, that provider, as we call it, that counselor, if there's not something about that person that gives a individual the motivation to say that person has credibility with me, somebody that I know that knows them and saw them, got helped by them. So I'm going to go see them because I see them differently. I don't just simply see them as a provider. Most of the people over the course of my time in dealing and providing services in our community is based on my credibility and my status or my standing with people. Most of the people, I've never had to advertise for people to come see me. Never. It's from the time I started doing it in 2000 to this day, there are people who will come see me because it's me, right? And that's not nothing special from the standpoint that there are other therapists and there are other counselors who people will come see them because it's them. And that tends to be how it is. One of the factors in our community is people put credibility based on the person. And if you don't got no credibility, you look too young, you don't seem like you know what you're talking about, or you whatever, then people ain't trying to come see you. So credibility is one. And then another one that we look at, and in terms of coming to see people, some of us, do they have any kind of spirituality about them? For some people that have spirituality, they're going to want to have that component. You're going to have to speak in that terminology too. So they come in for that reason. And then there's people who are going to come because they're concerned about other people. So they women going to come and bring their man, or man going to come and bring his woman, or parents going to come and bring their child. So you got people who will come for services for some of those reasons. But we still have people who believe that it's not their, it's not appropriate for them to seek mental health services. So we call that stigma. But in reality, I call it, folks just don't think it's relevant to them. I'm supposed to be able to deal with this. And if I can't deal with it, then I need to pray and depend and rely upon my family and that kind of thing. So I think in our community, we got all those kind of dynamics going on all the time. And so there's certain things we can do as providers to kind of put a different kind of appeal to it. We have to talk different. We can't talk in psychological terms. We have to break it down and talk in terms that people understand, but it's still, the principles are still there. So we have to do that. Then we have to be available. We have to be present. We just can't be sitting back in our offices and saying, hey, y'all come to us you know, when you need us. We got to be out there. We got to be seen. We got to represent. We got to, you know, that kind of stuff. We have to do that on a regular basis. And then I think that we have to have what I would say, or what I would call high accessibility. So the long and short of it is, we kind of are all over the map. I mean, there are people that would just come straight into a therapist. Black people just come in straight, see a therapist, and it's whoever's on the list, and they'll come in and do that. And then, like they said, there's other people that they'll discriminate, and they got to come see somebody that they feel like they know or they heard of, or whatever the case may be. Then we got a mixed bag, but we still have a segment of our population who don't believe that therapy, just even the whole term therapy. Nah, you're gonna therapy me, okay? That therapy is relevant to them. It's not relevant. So, and then they're gonna use a variety of other coping skills or coping stuff to deal with their issues that don't include seeing a professional. So,
I know, kind of just growing up, how like you probably heard it too when you was coming up, like boys don't cry, suck it up, be a man. You know what I mean? It's something that happened, but because you're a boy or you're a male, you were always told to hold it in and just no matter what, just keep going on without ever addressing that issue. And I think a lot of people in our community are dealing with that from years of just being told to just suck it up and just keep trucking on instead of just addressing those issues.
Yeah, because I mean the genesis of that, this is what folks a lot of times don't want to hear. The genesis of that is generational trauma that's passed down like a baton from one generation to one generation. There's people over there that says that's the past, got nothing to do with right now. You know, this is today, and none of that has anything to do with that. But this is, you know, the simple analogy. Home, a sister woman is in the kitchen cooking a pot roast, and then she takes this pot roast and cuts both ends out and puts it in the pot, put it in the oven and all that. And the daughter's watching her do that, and the daughter asks her, you know, why is it that you do your roast like that? Why you cut it off, put it in there like that? And she says, well, you know, that's what Mama taught me how to do. So she goes see Big Mama, and Big Mama says, she asked Big Mama, Mama said you cut it off like that. Why did you cut it off like that? And she said, well, the reason why I cut it off like that is because the pan was too small when I was cooking them. So I had to cut it off to fit it in the pan. So this is a silly example, but it talks about how things are passed down from one generation to another generation. What was passed down to us is what I call survival strategies. Survival in America strategies. How do you survive in America being a black male, right? How do you survive being a black male in America? How do you mentally, psychologically, spiritually survive? So what your mama taught you and your daddy taught you, your mama taught you, if your daddy didn't teach you, your daddy might even have been a little lighter on you than your mama, but all of them taught us, as was passed down from generation to generation to generation, that you're going to have to be dealing with some serious BS by coming up in America. That's the bottom line. You have to deal with some BS. And people ain't going to like you. People are going to come at you. People are going to look at you as if you are less than. People gonna mess with you, et cetera, et cetera. And so then you got to be tough and you got to be hard, because the world you live in is tough and hard. They coming at you, black person, black male, black female, you know, doesn't matter. It's coming at you. And so you got to be tough. And part of my job as a parent is to help you get ready for this. To help you get ready for this. And part of what you're going to have to do is deal with a whole lot of trauma and tragedy and all this kind of stuff based on wherever your area code. You're going to see people get killed. You're going to see people get robbed. You're going to see people OD and this, that, and the other. Some of these things you're going to see. Some stuff going to happen in the family. You're going to experience all these different things. And this is a result of the position that you've been placed in America. And because of that, you got to be tough. You got to be tough. You got to carry it because you're going to have to. Because if you don't learn how to carry it, it's going to break you down. You're going to be somewhere in the corner in a fetal position, you know, if you don't learn how to carry it. So suck it up, Buck. You know, slap, slap, slap. You know, let's play some chess. Let me hit you a couple of times. Pop out, pop back, hit me back. Come on, hit me back. You know, all that kind of stuff. You gotta deal with because they're preparing. So that's generational, and to some extent is generational trauma being passed down because the reality of it, when you look at every metric of our health and wellness, when you look at every one, we're at the bottom of the list. We ain't doing well physically, health-wise, medically. So all this carrying, you know, I always feel like I'm going off when I'm talking, but you know, all this carrying we be doing, all this load carrying and hardness and all of that stuff has a psychological toll on us. We become a little bit more numb psychologically, emotionally. We become a little bit more less responsive. We become less sensitive. The whole idea of holding in our tears, which is a cleansing type of thing, all of that is problematic for our overall health. So our life expectancy and the quality of our life medically, statistically, is lowered than folks that don't have to deal with that. So yeah, I mean, there's a balance. There's rites of passage, and there is this socialization that we have to teach our children just to be. You got to have a little bit more edge than the average American bear because you're black. So that's appropriate. But then also on the other side is we have to spend more time teaching our offsprings to have greater level of sensitivity. However it is you get it. You can be sensitive by meditating. You can be sensitive by listening to music. You can be sensitive by reading. You can be sensitive by having your own quiet time. You could be sensitive by watching a touching movie that brings you to tears and you allow yourself to cry. You can be more sensitive by seeing your grandchildren and a play or recital that's so touching to you that it touches your heart and has you to have some type of. So there's a balance. And so even though there's a necessity for us to have a little bit more hardness, and we should do that with some of our rites of passage, we should do that because that's the reality. You can't be you got to have somewhat of an edge in this Black American world today, right? So even though we know that's true, on the other hand, you got to have some sensitivity if you're going to live and have some wellness and not let your hardness take you out early because you had a heart attack or you had a stroke or you had something happen to you because all this psychological stuff that you got going on is caught up with you. So I think there's a balance. We tend to lean too hard toward the, be hard side, which is a part of, that's why I was saying that's one of the mental challenges of growing up in urban America is that one of the mental challenges that's one of them is us, having to have a degree of hardness. And then some of our children don't have it. And they seem like they don't fit in because they don't have it for whatever reason. They just don't have that in their DNA. And either the wolves are going to get them or they're going to come out of the hood and go somewhere else, like go to private school or something. Because if you don't have it, then that's going to be a problem functioning within, the hood, so to speak. So that's a challenge to deal with this whole thing of how do you be hard and have some sensitivity too. Mental, it's a challenge for us.
I agree. It is a challenge because when you look at what's going on today in our community, or if you even just look at our prison population, it's a lot of people in prison that had some type of balance and some type of self-awareness mentally, they probably wouldn't be in those situations. But because we lack the balance that we need, individuals end up in those situations. And I'm always thinking about how do we get get a hold on that, because a lot of people always talk about what's going on with our youth and maybe we should just lock them all up. And I'm just personally against locking people up. I halfway don't even like the zoo. But I just think it's a better solution to that issue than just sending them away and just saying, hey, just go lock them up and it's finished, because it's going to keep repeating itself unless we really address the issue.
Yeah, I think, and again, for me, the concept is there are these mental challenges for urban Black youth growing up in the hood. There's some challenges. So one of them is dealing with the whole heart thing. The other one is dealing with a seemingly limited options for who you are and who you're going to be growing up in America as a young Black person, growing up in America, particularly young Black males. And so that gets to the heart of what you're talking about, which also gets to the heart of the solution. What I mean by that is you grow up in some of your role models as far as who you see as an example of who you can be. And we have little sayings about that. If you can't see it, you can't be it. You're going to become whatever it is you see. So if in the hood you see ballers and shot callers and athletes and all these pre-designated type of identities, the gangbanger, the tough guy, the athlete, the whatever. So if we have these limited catalog of who you can be, and you grow up and don't fit one of those, then you pick one and you make yourself fit. So there are individuals who became gangbangers when they were young, had no intention of being gangbangers. They were a malleable, shapeable, moldable young person that could have been a senator or doctor or construction person or an architect or business person or entrepreneur or anything. It could have been anything. They were that talented and they were that heartfelt. But because what they saw was limited, they picked one. They picked the one that was closest to them, right? And then they became that. And I know from experience, if you try hard enough as a young person to become something, ultimately you will succeed. If you 10 and you're a Rudy Poot, if you try hard enough as a 10-year-old and you want to be a G and you keep trying to be a G, eventually you will be a sign-wielding, a gun-toting G, because you put the work in to become that, right? So for me, that is a challenge for us because we as a community don't give enough options for people to have a sense of who they are. So unfortunately, I don't even say it's unfortunate. The reality is we've got to go deeper in regards to helping our young people to see their identity that goes beyond America. It goes beyond slavery. It goes deep into our heritage in terms of where we come from, in terms of Black people, in terms of the continent of Africa and the symbolisms and the understanding and the history and the civilization and all of those things that help people to see that before you were exposed to this, that, and the other, you have an identity that goes beyond all of this. Just like other American populations have an identity that goes beyond their time in America, you've got one too. Yours has just been stolen, and there is this conspiracy to keep it from you. That's why it's not in the books. It's not talked about. Don't talk about it in church. Don't talk about it in school. Don't talk about it nowhere. That's why, because if we can cut you off from your past, we can have a hell of an impact on your future. If you don't know where you came from, it's hard for you to figure out where you're going. If you don't know your roots, it's hard for you to know who you are. So one of the challenges we have is we're raising children with no real deep sense of their roots, and we don't see the value of that. That's a problem. They don't have to walk around with dashikis, and you ain't got to change their name to Kunta Kinte, but they're going to have some understanding of who the hell they are on this planet that goes beyond the north side of Omaha, the south side of Chicago, or whatever, because those definitions by default is kind of limited. You end up looking like, unless I'm a rapper or a musician or entertainer or a gladiator, i.e. athlete, those are the only legitimate things that I can do, right? So our children have to have a sense of the deepness of who they are. In addition to that, they have to be exposed to other things in America now. So all over North Omaha, we need to be taking trips. We need to get them out of the hood, put them on buses, take them to college at an early age. I don't care if they don't go to college. Take them to a college, let them see a college. Take them to another state, let them see a state. Let them see the forest. Let them see another city. Put them on planes and let them go to the motherland and see another continent. We have to do something that gives them a picture of what their possibilities are, because one of the challenges they have in urban America is we have limited options for who we think we can become. So my daughter wanted to go to a law trip where she went to Washington, D.C. They went to visit these law offices, and we said, okay, yeah, whatever the money is, we're gonna send her, right? And some of our people were like, no, don't do that. Why are you doing that? She can just stay here. I'm like, no, man, no. If she wants to go and she wants to experience this, I'm going to invest in her going. She ultimately ended up in the Supreme Court, and one of the Supreme Court justices came out and talked to them. So from that paradigm that she got as a freshman or a sophomore, one or the other, motivated her to go to law school. She went to law school, Columbia, and passed, and is presently a lawyer today. And I think that some of these experiences helped to sow that within her. So we talk about the problems. One of the solutions is to expose our children to all kinds of things as soon as possible, for them to see options beyond what America is trying to tell them they can be. Because we don't even tell them they can be business people. We don't tell them they can be entrepreneurs. We don't tell them they can make their own stuff and build their own stuff and sell their own stuff and manufacture their own stuff and put an option and a tag and a trademark on their own ideas. So that ain't even being developed within them. And somehow it has to start happening at a young age. So the final thing, though, is in terms of incarceration, we have to get back to understanding who needs to be locked up and why. So people that are in fact a violent danger to the community need to have some level of isolation. So if you're a gun wielding, bullet shooting, pistol whipping person, no matter what, we have to do something with you to get you away from people that you can prey upon them to the point where you can kill somebody or hurt somebody or whatever the case may be. And prison used to be a rehabilitative in nature. We know that that's not the case now. So for those people, something is needed. But the problem with our incarceration, mass incarceration, everybody's locked up. Doesn't matter if you did violent, don't matter if you were in conspiracy, don't matter if you was in the room, don't matter if you got too many moving violations, don't matter. They're locking up our people based on so there's not enough resources within the penitentiary, which is a place where people were supposed to go do penance. You were supposed to be able to go think about what you did and come up with a plan for what you're going to do different. There's no room or time for that in penitentiary. There's too many people, and there's too many agendas, and there's too much going on. There's too much money being made to really be concerned about that. And you can be Tiny Tim or Little Lamb, or you can be just a marshmallow, so to speak, and be in prison. You're not a killer, but you're still in prison. But there needs to be some type of rehabilitative entity for people who are violent and shooters. And I think Another population of people that don't need to be incarcerated is youth. Youth don't need to be put into these penitentiaries with adults who are way down the road. There needs to be some attempt to preserve and save these kids that are youth, even though they've done some dastardly things in terms of, gang banging or whatever the case may be. Even though they've done some stuff, there needs to be special institutions that are rehabilitative in nature to really have an impact on them. And we have other countries, one in particular is Amsterdam, where they invest in people who have gone astray, so to speak. They give them jobs, they give them houses, they send them back to school, et cetera, et cetera. They have a system of rehabilitation, right? And they have less crime and they have less recidivism than we have here. So the reason why we are not able to do that in America, too many people are locked up. You don't have room, you ain't got time, you don't have resources. All you're doing is warehousing people. Outcomes from that cannot be good.
And I understand that, you do something, there should be a consequence to it. Mm-hmm. But here in America, we just overly punish people. Too many people, like, they're sitting in there for way too long. Yes. Like the crime don't fit the time.
Absolutely not. There's no doubt about
it. And that's the issue. It's like, okay, yeah, you punish me, but my punishment shouldn't warrant 40 years and then 20 years into that sentence. You're trading what you sentenced me for 40 years on the stock market. That, to me, that's just unfair.
Yeah, it's racism. And it's institutional racism. And it's a fact that we are over-policed, we're over-sentenced, right? And we're over-incarcerated. Those are just facts. And that is not accidental that is the case. So when you talk about institutional racism, which we can freely say nowadays, for some magical reason, when you talk about that is a clear example that we statistically are over sentenced by far. So if we went back to the 70s, I always like to use this as example. If you went back to the 70s and you looked at the laws that were on the books in the 70s, and we just went back to what the laws were then. And this came out of Michelle Alexander's work and her book, Mass Incarceration, the book that she wrote, right? If you go back to the 70s and you look at the laws then, if we were to revert back to the penalties that we had in the 70s, we would have to let 4 out of every 5 people out of prison today. That's how significant the laws have changed from then to now. That when you go back and you look at the trajectory of how mass incarceration went up, it was progressively going up and the sentences were progressively getting worse. And to some extent, to a small extent, some of our representatives and some of us who lived in environments where we were afraid and we were scared, we bought into the whole idea of lock them up. And so some of us endorsed that. We endorsed what some of these people were saying. And then we looked around and we saw that, hey, this ain't a good idea. It's too many mothers and fathers and sons and daughters, and it's too many communities being totally disrupted by this. And even though we know that that's the case statistically, brother, even though we know that today that is the case, right? We're still doing it. When it came down to the answer in Chicago, all of the smoke and mirrors and everything, when it came down to it, they went to Chicago and they locked a bunch of people up. Key people, major people, they locked them up as the part of the solution of what's supposed to cut down on the violence in that city, South Side, was going to be to lock all these people up. So then it's clearly not. And it's the same thing here to some extent. I understand we got a bunch of money. And one of the things we did was we bought a big, gigantic military style law enforcement type of deal as with the money that we got as a city. And then to some extent, that is the administration is touting that. So even though we know today, intelligent people people who have studied and went to school, etc. Even though we know today that that is not the answer overall to these problems, because we've been doing it for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and we still have a similar type problem. And even in light of the fact that crime is really overall not really going up astronomically overall, it's going up in some places, but astronomically. Even though we know all that, we still see that as the solution. So to the person who only has a hammer in their toolbox to use, then every problem looks like a nail that's calling for a hammer. And so you just bring out the hammer and do the same damn thing over again. And the thing about it is, we're so smart and we're so brilliant. We look around and see the best evidence-based situation. We always doing that as American people, and we want to do the best no matter what we do. No, for whatever problem it is, we're looking for the best solution. We're looking for whatever solution is already found and worked, and we will find that solution. We will work that problem. We do that for everything except for issues that are so-called related to the Black community. For that, the solutions are the same damn solutions, no matter what. Right. Sit down, shut up. We're gonna lock you up. We're gonna slap you around. We're gonna throw you around. We're gonna keep the police running around, and that's going to be the solution. And that, my good people out there in podcast land, that's institutional racism. That's what it is.
And like, when I speak of like reallocating police resources to address these issues, you get the backlash that they say it's going to make it harder to police. And I don't understand how it would make it harder to police if you're addressing the root issues to why individuals would even think about committing a crime. How would that make it harder to police? It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
But the type of language they put out, like, oh, it's going to be tougher, it's going to make our lives tougher. I'm like, so if you address poverty, which would prevent another person probably wanting to go rob a store or something, how would that make your job harder? I just don't understand.
So, I mean, you know, I look at it like this. Let's just say you, as a person who is a government official, and you want major resources to continue to go to police. Let's just say that you want major resources to continue to go to police, and you don't want those resources cut at all whatsoever. Okay, fine. Then let's put a hold on that right there and just say that's what you want to do, and you're going to do it no matter what. If you want to do it, you're going to do it no matter what. You're going to continue to fund it to the rate that you're funding it, and you really don't want to hear nothing about it. You might listen. We might have a conversation. You might have us come down and talk in front of the panel, and then ultimately you still go and do what you want to do anyway. So, but that's fine. If that's not what you want to do, then on the other hand, then just make sure resources are available to do this other stuff. Then keep funding over here and just bring in more resources so that other things can be done over here, right? To address these issues that are having impact on the state and on the economy and on the fabric of society anyway. Invest some other money in this. Okay, so you don't want to do that either. Okay, so you don't want to take money from over here and put over here, and you don't want to put no additional money over here. Okay, well, how about this? How about you get out the way and allow the people over here to have a greater control over what happens in the schools and what happens in the resources, that the meager resources that we do have. Allow us to have greater control and say over what's going on in these major systems that are affecting our children, that are affecting our adults, and affecting our community. Step back then and keep your money and let us call shots in our own environment. Okay, you don't want to do that either. So you don't want to take money from over here. You don't want to give additional resources, and you still want to have gatekeepers and controls over this major decisions that are happening within the community. One major decision, if we look at it, one major thing that's happening is how schools are run, what the criteria is, who's teaching, and what they're teaching in our schools to our kids. We don't even get to say what that is. That ain't even a matter of money. We're not even talking money here. We're just talking, just get out the way and let us say and contribute to the unique nature of what we believe needs to happen in our schools. Let us do that. Well, now, if you don't want to do none of these things, that, my friends, is racism.
It is.
That's you. What you want to do is maintain social control over a population of people to your benefit. That's what you ultimately want to do. So if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to keep doing, just admit it. And then we don't have to keep having these discussions and arguments and whatever. Just admit that's what you're doing. And then, wait for the revolution, I guess, because you can't ask people to not keep trying. You can't ask people to not keep struggling. You can't ask people to sit down and shut up and go dribble and go smoke a joint and just be happy with whatever you got in life. Don't worry about all these other people over here who are tripping and struggling and all that kind of stuff. You can't ask for that. There's going to be somebody along the way. There's going to be some John Lewis's and some Terrell McKinney's and some various other different people, all these different people that you look at as pests. They're not going nowhere. They're going to keep sounding an alarm. So, yeah. So one other thing that I would say, look, you like something getting your attention. We'll be on time.
No, it was my daughter. You all right?
Oh, okay. I could tell somebody important had your attention. One other major mental challenge for the developing young person in urban America, better known as the hood, underserved areas of inequities, areas where health care and education and all those other kinds of things are lacking, is this whole mental challenge that kid has that says from the very beginning, you're less than. And there's a number of other ones. I could write a book on it. Matter of fact, I think I will write a book on it. But one of them is the challenge that you have to overcome as a Black person growing up in the hood that says you're less than. That mental message has been going on for generations. It's been going on for generations, been passed down. It's insidious, but it's still real. It's real in the books. It's real in the media. It's real everywhere you look. This message that says the reason why you're in the condition that you're in is because you are somehow less than. So a person who's growing up in poverty, growing up with less resources, growing up with less access, growing up with this, that, and the other, any person that's dealing with that, that's a challenge to overcome that. It's a challenge to overcome that, because what we understand from my experience being in that situation, you see prosperity. You see it. You could see it so close, you could taste it, right? But it ain't for you. And so for some reason, you got to ask yourself, why is all this stuff going on all around me, but it ain't for me? I don't get none. What's wrong with me? What, and the only thing that you could, possibly come up with, the only thing that's wrong with you is you're Black. So this mentality that you're less than is a mental health issue. People don't understand that people are suffering from a mental challenge that is validated by implicit racism and bias and every other kind of ism you want to put at, that's sending this message to you that you got to walk around in a prosperous country and somehow get denied the dignity of being addressed as a human being. That's a hell of a thing. So for some people, that's so heavy for them, they need assistance with that. So then what we end up doing, we end up overcompensating. So we make music that calls ourselves kings and gods and all this other stuff to try to offset the image that I'm less than. So we take it to a whole nother level. Then we come up with whole organizations that end up taking the information and some of the truths that they found about the history of Black people, of the fact that we are the original people on the planet, the original people on the planet. They take all that information and what we did with civilization and all our contributions. They take all of that and they add it all up and say, they would say, well, damn, not only are we equal, but we better than we better than some of y'all, right? So, right. But either way, one of the mental health challenges that we have in urban America is to equip our children to recognize that they have humanity and dignity, worth, talents, gifts, and abilities. So one of the solutions is everything that we can do that continues to cultivate that at a young age is necessary for our youth. So it should be in schools. In our schools where Black children are, and our schools, there has to be initiatives that build into their mental structure and offset to this ongoing message that they're less than. So, I mean, whether they're chants and signs and different experiences, where we have a whole list of movies that we expose them to, that we have to do something. One of the things that happen with it, if you grow up as a young person with that message and you don't do something, and you're in your adults carrying that around, you're an adult person carrying that around, you're going to have some mental health problems. You're not going to be a happy camper. It's called depression, anxiety, tripping, a sadness, addiction, etc. And some people are suffering from that whole sense of being looked down upon, beat down, etc., etc. You know, as an adult, then you need a therapist for that. But for some of the stuff we could do for kids is on an educational level, and it starts young, whether we're doing it in Saturday school, whether we're doing it in Sunday school, whether we invade the school system and allow them to do some things there to build up worth and self-image of our children. No matter how we do it, it has to be done.
I agree. I think until we start doing that, a lot of our issues will still just keep happening, honestly.
Yeah.
And and I think you said the right thing. We gotta realize that we gotta put all the titles and everything else to a side and realize that we are who we are, and we gotta address that. We gotta leave whatever else at the door and come in and check who we are before we can even begin to grow and expand what we want to see in life. Because honestly, if it wasn't for wrestling, I don't know if I would have saw past North Omaha, honestly, because we were able to go on trips and things like that, and you just be looking around like, wow, there's so much other stuff around. It's like, oh, I could, like, for me, it was like wrestling. Like, this is my opportunity to get away from Omaha. I might be gone for 2 to 3 days, but to me, this 2 to 3 days is heaven in a lot of ways.
And for me, it was education. And because it was education from the standpoint that early in my school days, I mean, I was an active kid, loud, funny, talk a lot of smack, start a lot of stuff, you know, always involved in stuff kind of kid. So I could have really went a whole different direction as a young person. But what they did in my school system was those teachers, which were they were Black teachers, Black females. What they did was, whenever I did something good, I did good on a paper or anything else that was good, that for me was just, you gave me the paper, I filled it out, and I did what you asked me to do. I didn't know it was necessarily good, but whenever I did that, they gave me some kind of incentive. They said something, they gave me a quarter. Now you're a quarter, okay? A quarter in 3rd grade. All right. I mean, it was a long time ago, but it was like, you know, you rich. You can get some lemon heads and some cookies and some Red Hots and some whatever else case may be. But those things said to me, if I continue to do well in academics, I'm going to be rewarded. They taught me that by doing that. They taught me that. And so I knew that no matter what else was going on in my world, I had the ability to excel academically, and that I learned early on that if I did, I would be rewarded. And so I never lost that reality. And I knew that no matter what environment that I went in, while I was in the military, whether I was working, whether I was a non-traditional student. Now I'm a grown man, married, raising kids. I'm still going to school. You see what I mean? And I still got that incentive, and I still got the rewards, and it still paid off. So it's things like that, like you said, exposes our young people to a variety of different things. And we find ways to sow into their gifts, their talents, and their abilities to let them know that they do have options outside of being an entertainer and nothing wrong with that. If you can be an entertainer, be an entertainer. If you can be an athlete, go ahead and leap tall buildings with a single bound. I mean, if I could have, started playing, because in my school system, there were no sports and no music. So even though I was pretty fast in terms of track, I never had the opportunity to do none of that because we didn't have a track team. So we didn't have a track team, none of like that going on at all. So not to knock any of that, but those are not the only options, and all of our children don't fit into those bags.
Right. Because I know with wrestling, like I always knew, like with wrestling, I'm most likely not going pro, but I also could use wrestling to go get this education to hopefully
Absolutely.
benefit myself down the line. So that's what I used it for. Yes, I enjoyed the sport. I still coach and love it, but I use it as an avenue to get my education and kind of get away from what I was used to.
Absolutely.
But we coming to a close, and I definitely appreciate you coming on tonight and talking with us. If you haven't, make sure you visit the website, peopleforterrellmckinney.com. When you go there, you learn more about me. You can sign up to volunteer, and you can also donate to our campaign, which would be great. It takes a lot of resources to run a campaign and to be successful. If you ever got any questions, feel free to just reach out to me. I'm usually super responsive, so just reach out to me and we'll work something out. How can people reach you, Larry?
Yeah, I was going to say, you can reach me at Charles Drew. And what we would say is that don't let finances or lack of finances discourage you from seeking therapeutic services. One of the foundational principles of federally qualified health centers is to not turn away people that are in need of services, regardless of their financial situation. So don't let it be finances. You can reach us at You can reach me 402-457-1224, 402-457-1224, 402-457-1224. So we are there at Charles Drew. We can typically get you in to be seen and at real early. So if you called in on a Monday, we could probably get you seen by no later than Wednesday, if that's what it is. And again, there are city and state funding to provide mental health services for people at whatever cost that is you're able to pay. If you're only able to pay $1, then that's all you pay is $1. You're able to pay $5, that's all you pay $5, et cetera, et cetera. If you're able to pay nothing, and that's the reality what it is, then you still qualify for the same quality of services that somebody who paid $100 for. You qualify that because the whole concept is that nobody should be denied basic medical, Charles Drew, behavioral health, Charles Drew, dental services, Charles Drew, and services related to the family. Nobody should be denied these things because they don't have funding. And one of the things I say to my brothers, that even if you just get annual exams, you don't get nothing else. You just get an annual exam, a medical exam. Some of the things that's going on in your system could be caught early, and you could save your life because something was caught early, and we can refer you to a specialist to take care of something that maybe require more heavy duty stuff in regards to procedures and medical procedures. But a lot of times, us as Black men, we end up in issues because we don't catch stuff till late. I'm a vet. So, like last time I just got a call from the vet. Hey, you need to come down here. We need to see you. Okay. I was like, what's up? They said, well, it's just time for you to do your annual labs. I said, okay. They did the labs, and every year They call me and I come to the labs and they check on all the vital things related to me being a Black male. And if you are not a vet, but you have access to federally qualified health centers such as Charles Drew, go get checked out early, and be around to see your grandkids and your great grandkids and all that other stuff. That's the bottom line. You know, don't leave out of here early just because you was too hard. Check up. Okay. Thank you, brother, for having me on.
Oh, no problem.
I can take an hour in 1 minute, and I can chew up an hour in a minute. So
I already know. Thank you all. We'll see you again next week. We're signing off.
All right.